Oh yeah, let's go. Aragami is probably my favourite game of the last 20 years or so. A thesis statement, it is basically a modern Dreamcast game. It also perfectly blends all the nice quality of life stuff of modern games with that big dopamine hit of retro stuff, and I am dying to talk to you about it, so grab yourself a snack, sit back, and let's get into it. When I was a kid growing up in the 90s, stealth games were all the rage. You had Metal Gear Solid, Tenchu, Hitman, Siphon Filter, Splinter Cell, and countless others. They haven't all necessarily aged well, but there was definitely a time there when everybody enjoyed being a sneaky little dude, gender neutral. Nowadays, even your AAA third-person cinematic craft-em-up games often have a heavy stealth component, but that's not enough for me. I want it raw, old school, straight into my veins, pure stealth, no faff. I want to be a ninja, and so I am, here in Aragami. A ninja in a super gorgeous, stylized world with simple controls and big fun times. But what is this game exactly? Well, as noted, Aragami, which is more of a title than a name, is a ninja of sorts. Specifically, he is a supernatural spectre. Think something like Raziel from Soul Reaver. And just like Raziel in those games, Aragami is capable of learning magic, which helps him with traversal, exploration, and most importantly, cold-blooded murder. The systems in this game are damn near perfect, and I'll be getting into them in a little bit. But for now, I will just say that they are minimal while still being deep enough to be meaningful. No wasted motion at all in this game. Story time. What's it all about, you ask? Well, our boy materialises from the Netherrealm looking dripped out to fuck in a badass red robe which replaces the function of a hood in this game, more on that later. He is then greeted by a TikTok person who tells him that she is the astral projection of a kidnapped princess and negs him into agreeing to rescue her. That journey spans the whole of the game, and therefore essentially comprises the core idea of the plot. A rescue mission. Simple enough. But as you could probably guess, there's lots of twists and turns to come, and whilst it never gets Kojima deep, thank God, it is still engaging enough that I was intrigued by the mystery, and I wanted to know more about the characters and the world as I went along. Who is this suave ninja that the gamer girl yeeted into existence? How did she do it? And what exactly is he? All these and more questions are answered across the course of 13 superb missions. Yeah, 13. It's not a long game, it doesn't outstay its welcome, and it in fact leaves you wanting more, which is where the DLC and Aragami 2 come in. It's perfectly paced, and it kept me coming back to replay the missions again and again for fun and profit. It's one of the very few games I've ever worked to get perfect rankings and unlock every costume, and such is my love for it. It's also one of the very few games that I've got good at speedrunning just from the sheer amount of time I've played it. The only other one of those being Dark Souls, but I don't really want to talk about the Souls games on here because they're not my favourite FromSoft stuff. That's Echo Knight, and that's for another video. How does Aragami play then, and what's so good about it? Well, what sets it apart from other great ninja em-ups, I guess, such as Tenchu and Shinobido? Well, for one thing, no hood, like I said. I like this concept a lot, but it might not be immediately apparent just how revelatory it is. Think about games that don't have hoods. Maybe you're thinking of cinematic platformers, Abe's Odyssey, Limbo, that kind of stuff. Maybe you're thinking of wholesome explore-em-up games like Sable or Alba, but you're probably not thinking of an action-packed bloodbath like Aragami. The way everything's communicated intuitively in-game is quite a marvel in my opinion. How do I check my stamina? Aragami's cloak's got a long pattern on the back that will fade as I use up essence and refill when I'm hidden. How do I know if I'm hidden? Aragami will turn from his usual bright red colour to a dark shadowy colour. How do I know how much health I have? Well, I know that I've always only got 1 HP because that's all Aragami will ever have. He is a shade tethered between realms, which also makes him a weak ass bitch who gets one shot on the wreck. So to make up for his weak ass, he has become a sneak ass and has the power to stealth up an entire city, leaving hundreds of dead chumps in his wake. This is worth talking about since you'll never get the option to go toe to toe with an enemy. You can't actively slash your sword freely by pressing the attack button, you can't block or parry, you can't duel. Aragami will only enter into a kill if he is right next to the person, so you can't do the Tenchu thing of knocking an enemy back and running away. It might surprise you to know that I do actually hate mandatory stealth. If a game makes me fail the mission for being seen, then that's bad game design. Fortunately, stealth is not mandatory here. Seriously, you could just be a mad lad getting seen by every single guard, and even once they've raised the alarm, you can still run up to them and stab them with a one-hit kill. It's just tricky since you need to dodge their one-shot kill attacks on you, and they all have projectile magic slashes or bow and arrows, but you can easily kill every enemy on the map either with total stealth or with berserk head-on assaults. Whichever way you choose it, Aragami has many dark arts at his disposal which will help you, and we'll talk about these next. The only modern features this game implements are an item wheel and a skill tree. Both things that in lesser games could become intrusive and break the immersion, but not here. For instance, how do I know which item I am currently using? The symbol for that item will appear in the circle on Aragami's cloak design. For example, a shuriken. How do I know how many shurikens I have left to use? There are markers near the circle that will deplete as items and abilities are used. You can also refill them by praying at shrines or doing special kill types on guards. How do I unlock new abilities and kill types? Well, you collect scrolls. These are the only collectibles in the game, and they act as points with which you can buy stuff in the skill tree. For example, unlocking shurikens costs 2 scrolls. The skill tree is small and neat, and not a single scroll is wasted. As with a lot of things in this game, there is no fat to trim. There are exactly enough scrolls in the game to level up every skill, no more and no less. So you can get everything in one playthrough, or if you miss something, you can go back. Beautiful! But why do I want to go back if I can get everything in one playthrough? Well, in short, it's a viscerally satisfying game. There are costumes to unlock for challenges such as kill everyone, kill no one and never be seen in a mission, etc. But the things that keep me coming back really are just the simple but addictive gameplay and the gorgeous settings. Take a look at Mission 6 here, the Mausoleum of the Fallen. This level has a central hub tower that we want to get into, but to do that we have to go through 4 temples: fire, water, earth and wind, and we got to solve puzzles to disable the barriers. It's a simple conceit, but something about the way it's set up really just appeals to my ape brain. Satisfying. Another thing I like about this game is the way the narrative is handled. Unlike a lot of modern games, there are no game disrupting set pieces or sections where you have to stop and listen to a character talk. You are always a ninja, all the time. You move, you plan, you kill, and you keep doing that for the duration of each mission. Most missions are bookended by an opening and a closing cutscene which moves the narrative along, and sometimes they'll have a short scene within the mission. This approach did remind me of something like Tenchu or any old school game where the action is divided neatly into missions, all of which can be freely replayed from a nice mission select screen. I love that sort of thing because it really respects the player's time. You could literally play this game for 30 minutes a day, roughly 1 mission, and then you'd beat it in just under 2 weeks. Or you could be a mad lad like me and marathon it all night long and then spend the next night replaying your favourite parts. And that's what I like about this, the accessibility to replay and jump back in, something that a lot of sprawling AAA titles really miss out on, I feel. Before we take a look at the DLC, let me just talk about the vibe and the aesthetic real quick, as I am wont to do on this channel. On the face of it, this game is a lot like Tenchu. Although never specified, we are clearly in the Sengoku or Edo period of Japan, replete with feudal lords, castles, Buddhist temples, Inari shrines, bamboo forests, etc, etc. However, the secret sauce here is the visual style. It's not quite cel-shaded, but it does have a heavy anime vibe. The body proportions on the characters are just a little exaggerated, but not cartoony. The colour palette is unnaturally vivid and bright, but not quite psychedelic. It's all just right. It's stylish enough to feel otherworldly, and a little bit Dreamcasty, but it's restrained enough to stop it from becoming a full-blown anime game. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Aragami 2 tweaks the style a bit in favour of more realism. I've got mixed feelings on that, but hey ho, we move on. Because a vibe is not just visuals. The whole tone here, the way the narrative is relayed, is also pretty notable. As I say, we do have a few cutscenes per mission to keep the plot going, but generally you will be left alone with your thoughts. You can eavesdrop on the conversations of the soldiers, and that adds to the world building, plus you get frequent visits from Yamako, which really works wonders. Yamako is our aforementioned gamer girl, and boy howdy is she a fucking trip. Self-centered, aloof, and with absolutely no concern for your well-being despite how you're risking your entire existence for her. However, she is your only friend in this world, unless you count Kurosu the Raven, who effectively functions as your compass. This really underscores how you're out here on a solo mission. It's not exactly somber or lonely or anything, but you know that all you have to get you through are your ninja skills and a couple of spells. And if you ever did get bored of the base game, here we've got a rare case of justified DLC. I am generally not in favour of paid DLC, thank you Sonic Frontiers for making it free, but this one is great value for money. £4 and you get a whole extra prequel storyline, 4 big missions and 2 new characters who are both super cool. So you choose to play as Goro Majima or Ruby Roundhouse and then off you pop into the story. I always think adding lore in DLCs can be risky and can sometimes detract from the main game, but not so here. Every detail adds some depth to the core narrative. And both of these characters are actually really likeable. You can box off the DLC as its own little game in about 2 or 3 hours and you'll have had a satisfying stealth experience, not to mention a roller coaster of emotion following the lives of these characters. The ending made me feel when I was not prepared to feel, which is a great testament to the world building here. Before I wrap it up, I just want to quickly touch on Aragami 2. I don't care much about public opinion when it comes to my gaming choices, but this one seems a little less popular. It's only mostly positive on Steam, where the first one is very positive. Not that it matters, but I'll give you my 2 pennies anyway. The first, Aragami, is a stone cold 10 out of 10 banger, and I would say that the sequel is a clean 9 out of 10. Still very, very good and worth your time and money, but some big changes, as you can probably see from the footage here. It's got a faster pace and more ninja-like agility, it makes it feel a little bit more like Tenchu. You can jump now, which you couldn't on the first one. But in a kind of crazy way that really worked. Why would I bother jumping when I can just shadow teleport everywhere? The second game is also heavily signposted as being more online, from the busier HUD to the expanded multiplayer, and as you may know, I don't really give a hoot about any of that stuff. But it's not intrusive. The story's cool too, as you've now got a clan and a base, so you get those big hangout vibes that I'm always so fond of. Essentially, the first game was perfect and you can't improve on perfection, so I applaud Linceworks for giving it a go anyway and still turning out a damn fine game. I'm looking forward to Aragami 3 sometime soon, I hope. But for now, my friends, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and maybe the subscribe. Looking forward to more content throughout the year, and until then, stay sneaky.